Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our event celebrating the Coral Triangle Day. And in this webinar, we celebrate women in the sustainable blue economy. This is a joint event between the Coral Triangle Initiative, Regional Secretariat, Coral Triangle Program from WWF, and the Coral Triangle Center. My name is Rili Johani. I'm the Executive Director for the Coral Triangle Center based in Bali. And we are currently also the co-chair for the Women Leaders Forum. On June 9, every year, we mark Coral Triangle Day, celebrating the world's epicenter of marine biodiversity, containing 76% of the world's coral species, 37% of the world's reef fish species, and supporting millions of people by providing their food and livelihoods. This year's Coral Triangle Day theme is sustaining the Coral Triangle ecosystem through the blue economy, and is aligned with the International UN World Ocean Day celebration on June 8, which calls on revitalization, collective action for the ocean. So the Secretariat, in collaboration with CTC and WWF Coral Triangle Program, we decided to highlight innovations and actions being undertaken by women leaders across the Coral Triangle in sustaining marine resources through blue economy innovations. And I'd just like to highlight a little bit about some of the aspects of the blue economy. So just for our reference, it's very much based on the notion that For sustainable development, we have to conserve marine life and oceans. We have to protect coastal communities from the impacts of climate change, but at the same time tackle marine litter and ocean pollution. We are looking at sustainable fisheries actions to secure food security for now and future generations, but also looking at the larger industry, shipping, all those industries that use the oceans and try to make them more sustainable. And foremost, it's about inclusive economy, where no one is left behind and we improve the lives of all. So we hope that with the great speakers today, we can highlight some of those great actions that women are undertaking in this context of the blue economy. Yeah. So we will highlight lessons learned in the last 2 years of the pandemic. We aim the spotlight on successful women-led initiatives linked to sustainable marine resource management in the view that these can inspire others to take similar action for ocean revitalization. So it's my honor to introduce Dr. Kushari. He is the Executive Director of the Coral Triangle Initiative for Coral Reefs, Fisheries and Food Security, and comes with more than 35 years working in coastal and marine resources management, of 18 years in the government, and the remaining years in teaching and consulting work. He's a professor of science at Unicel in Malaysia, private university, and his area of specialization is on coastal ecosystem management, rehabilitation and conservation, namely the coral reef and island ecosystems. Dr. Kushari, please, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, and good morning to all of you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you for inviting me to give some opening remarks. And I would like also to give some views on this gender composition. As this webinar was advertised, as you all have noticed, I am in the minority category. As a minority member, I must be rather careful with my words on my opinion. It is a general norm that when you are in a minority, all attention will be focused on you. The minority will normally have a majority audience as compared to those from the majority group. But I am sure in this forum, I was invited not because of the gender group of which I behold and being categorized into, but rather due to the respect of the post I hold. I am aware that the speakers invited in this webinar are excellent individuals who have contributed greatly not only to women themselves, but to the rest of the Coral Triangle inhabitants. And I believe we will hear interesting views from them today. But before we hear what they have to lecture, please kindly allow me to give a little perspective from what I see on gender composition. In general, the gender composition is somehow equal in numbers between men and women. But gender composition, however, could be altered, and this alteration can happen due to the action of the human themselves, such as through war, which resulted less number of men than women as men are being killed in the field. The gender composition can also be disrupted a little due to the opportunity, if I may call it, taken by brave men, such as polygamy. This practice is allowed in some culture. Mathematically speaking, in a population of equal men and women, if a man takes more than one woman to marry, there will be another man who will either have a hard time looking for a woman to marry, or who will not able to have a wife, as the number of women becomes relatively less in the long run. Now let me bring you to the facts about numbers. Numerical value is quantitative, and quantitative analysis is often useful because it often gives us a clear picture on matters of interest. We can compare and analyze by looking at the similarities or differences showed through numbers. The population of the coastal communities that are dependent of the Coral Triangle right now is around 130 million. Now, taking to the facts we took earlier, that the number of men and women of being equal, there will be approximately 65 million men and 65 million women inhabiting the coastal area of the Coral Triangle. And if the woman is excluded, then the total left is 65 million men. But to these 65 millions, we need to remove 19% from it that falls under the youth category. That is those of 15 to 24 years of age. As in some law of some countries, youth are not allowed to work. As a result, the number 65 million now comes 53 million. For data information, the 19% are removed is the average composition of youth in the member countries of the city region, the Coral Triangle region, which range from 18% in the 3 ASEAN countries and 20% of the member countries from the Pacific, Oceania, and another from the Southeast Asia itself. Now, let us go back to the 53 million men left. We need to remove further 20% of it that falls under the children category that is below 15 years of age. They cannot work. As a result, the number now becomes 43 million. This is the total number left representing the man workforce around the Coral Triangle region. But looking at the development of the Coral Triangle region in terms of GDP of the respective member countries for the last 10 years, such development cannot be true if we were to say that the development is the result of the hard work from the man workforce itself. We need to look at some facts about men. Universally, not all men fall under the category of clever men, as those who are not very clever are also present among the clever. The not very clever are choosy in the job. They choose to earn a living. As a result, some percentage of them remains not to work at all, to hold on to their principles. And to add further to the misery of women, some men have been categorized as lazy in some studies. But as a man myself, and from what I observe, the laziness is not due to being born lazy or due to genetic link, but rather due to the inability of men to have jobs that they're satisfied or happy in doing. As a result, they continue to do work, but with low productivity. And some of these men from this unfortunate lazy category, they tend to waste more hours in the long run due to the inability of doing things efficiently before they go to sleep and after they wake up from sleep. The research by the Sleep Foundation have found that in terms of gender comparison on sleep between active men and women, relatively both are the same. With the woman sleeps a little extra than men by 5 to 28 minutes, depending on age. Given these facts to look on the questions of gender contribution to the development of mankind, we can come to the understanding that we cannot do without the woman. In a study by Liana Sayer of the University of Michigan 2015, she found that women's daily housework has dropped 1 hour and 45 minutes between the years 1965 and 2012, falling from 4 hours a day to less than 2.5 hours a day, primarily because more women joined the force over that same period. Women of the Coral Triangle has contributed tremendously to me. Work hand in hand with smart and high productivity men workforce, either in the lower working categories or in higher skilled workforce, be it in the field of natural-based resources or industrial and technological applied categories. A tribute to women cannot be ignored in terms of their contribution from family units to the rise of the GDP over the years in the Coral Triangle member countries. I hereby wish and believe that this webinar will further bring all of us to look deeper into the contribution of women and the role they play not only economically, but also to the sustainability of the Coral Triangle region as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kutani, for your remarks. We very much appreciate it. And we hope that you can stay for some of the presentations, at least, to see how the women in this case, Philippines, Indonesia, and the Solomon Islands are doing in the blue economy. Thank you so much. So very happy to introduce the next speaker for our forum. Her name is Susan Rojas. She's the Sustainable Finance and Fisheries Lead for the WWF Coral Triangle Program. Based in Manila, Susan has over 20 years of experience in leading business development and sustainable strategies in both corporate and non-profit sectors across Asia. She's currently the Asia Pacific Coordinator for the Global Dialogue on Seafood Traceability, working with industry leaders to forge best practice traceability standards for seafood supply chains through an industry-led business-to-business platform. She is also leading innovative finance mechanisms to support sustainable fisheries production as part of WWF's Coral Triangle Program, and working in the sustainable blue economy space on blended financing approaches to help sustain the wealth of tuna stocks. So thank you, Susan, for being here. Look forward to your presentation.
Thank you very much, Really, and thank you everyone for having me. Good morning and happy Coral Triangle Day to everyone. So I will present a brief overview of the sustainable blue economy on behalf of Louise Heaps, who heads WWF Sustainable Blue Economy Initiative. And then I will reflect on how the sustainable blue economy can work in the Coral Triangle, and really has provided a very good overview of the different sectors in the blue economy. The ocean economy generates $2.5 trillion in the value of goods and services. The value of oceans as an asset covering ecosystem and provisioning services, we then reach 24 trillion. This is not surprising given that oceans accounts for 97% of the Earth's water and 87% of its life forms. And yet, SDG 14, protecting life underwater, continues to receive one of the lowest levels of investment in global efforts to deliver the SDG goals by 2030. The shift to a sustainable blue economy is very urgent given the threats, and we will talk about threats further on. A sustainable blue economy restores, protects, and maintains ocean health and biodiversity. The use of clean technologies are essential, as is the beneficial impacts on people. Oceans must continue to sustain livelihoods, ensure food security, and the cultural wealth of coastal nations, and deliver critical ecosystem services, such as carbon absorption. WWF has been very active in the transition to sustainable blue economy, beginning with co-authoring sustainable blue economy finance guidelines. In partnership with UNEP-FI, WWF contributed to guidelines substantiating the delivery and application of sustainable blue economy principles in finance, targeting banks, insurers, and investors to help them align the use of financial instruments with sustainable investments in ocean sectors, focusing initially on seafood, meaning fisheries and aquaculture, maritime transportation, port development, coastal and marine tourism, and marine renewable energy. So how can we transition to a sustainable blue economy in the Coral Triangle, where we have 120 million people that rely on marine resources? Fish is the primary source of protein in the region, and we have some of the highest fish consumption rates per annum in Malaysia and China, for instance. But the pressures on our region are immense, precisely because it is so rich in biodiversity. Aside from being a main destination for tourism, the Coral Triangle provides raw materials for extractive industries, oil and gas reserves, sand mining, which is growing, and most of all, fisheries. In addition to being highly vulnerable to climate impacts, the region also generates the highest volume of plastics into the ocean. There is a lot to be done to curb anthropogenic threats, build the resilience of coastal nations against climate warming and increasing acidification. It is crucial to maintain the stability of ocean systems to continue to provision for the populations that rely on its resources, including the critical role of absorbing 30% of atmospheric carbon. Money makes things happen, so attracting much needed investments and how we use capital in the region can turn the tide. Over the past decade, there has been a marked increase in investments in oceans. Sustainable investment mechanisms such as blue bonds are definitely cropping up in the region. The ADB launched the Blue Bond Incubator and a blue bond. In the Philippines, the largest bank, BDO, has just issued a blue bond fully guaranteed by the IFC, and there is discussion on a blue bond for the Pacific. Philanthropic funding, according to our Shared Seas report, reached 1.2 billion. And Asia tops the investments in oceans and fisheries, includes Indian Ocean and the Western Central Pacific Ocean. How can we ensure this supports the transition to a sustainable blue economy? Looking at realities in the region, governments see natural resource exploitation as a driver of growth, and many times at any cost. Although there are guidelines for sustainable financing, such as the ASEAN Green Bond Principles, Sustainable Finance Principles of the Philippines Department of Finance, oftentimes these are not applied as costs to implement and monitor compliance are quite steep. Governments are pressed to meet debt payments. Private sector are the main vehicles for growth, and oftentimes short-term profit margins take priority over long-term sustainability impacts. You cannot, and I need to stress this, you cannot have a sustainable blue economy unless it engages and includes coastal communities, because they are the frontline stewards of our coastal and marine resources. Because of risk, majority of the financing goes to large industry or asset-backed investments. Many times the industry has very opaque supply chains, little transparency, and not sustainable. Mostly opportunities for high sustainability value interventions are overlooked for the usual investor mindset, meaning they need collateral-based investments. My father, who is a development economist, told me with regards to development models, if it looks familiar, don't take that direction, because familiar models have not been effective and were oftentimes the cause of the problem. We have to approach oceans work systemically. Because we are never far from the coasts, ecosystems approaches make the most sense. Ridge to reef assessments of how to manage resources. What happens on land affects coastal ecosystems and oceans. I was in a consultation with the Fisheries Agency and Tuna Handline Fishers Association, and the head of the association berated the government representatives for not consulting them before they gave license for mining in one of the islands. So the runoffs destroyed fishing grounds in municipal waters with a huge cost to the fishers. There are some very sound policies. However, implementation and enforcement are a big problem, as well as interagency communications. DNR, for example, that takes care of the environment, and the Bureau of Fisheries should have been speaking. Collaboration is needed in working in human and biological systems. Natural resources are more complex. Investors need to be educated in social and ecosystem impacts. Communities must strengthen their financial management capabilities to help bridge the gap and strengthen communication and linkages between these sectors. Governments require capacity building all around. The mix of finance mechanisms should include the diverse needs and risk profiles of the ecosystems approach. A portfolio could include parametric insurance, impact investments, private equity, grants that at the same time strengthen enabling conditions such as policy, capacity building, de-risking measures. I could go so far as to say that we should review what we mean by risk. Risk, and to whom is the risk, right? So innovation and technology applications today cannot just solve the challenges we face, but open doors to new ways of thinking and doing that considers community well-being of equal importance as corporate profits. Again, my father used to tell me that the global dialectic is not between the right or the left, capitalism and communism. It's between community and corporations. It's about who has access to resources and who benefits. A sustainable blue economy needs to understand the trade-offs and deliver a balance. Lastly, gender inclusivity is essential. Women need to play a bigger role in sustainable blue economies because women's managerial skills, their innate ability to multifunction, make them effective financial managers. Their bottom line is their household's income and well-being of their community. Women look at long-term sustainability because they have to think about the future of their children. Women are a huge factor in de-risking investments in communities. And this makes women the best investment opportunity in Asia Pacific. Thank you very much. And I'd also like to thank the organizers of this very important session today.
Thank you so much, Susan, for your excellent presentation. It provides a great context and platform for the following speakers. We'll highlight some specific projects in which women play a pivotal role in the economy project. If people have questions, please put them in the chat box. I'll later respond to questions. So thanks so much, Susan. Great presentation. Really appreciate it. So our next speaker is Dr. Hestie Widodo, Senior Program Manager from the Coral Triangle. So Hestie is the CTC Senior Program Manager overseeing the Training and Learning Program at CTC, the Learning Sites Program and Learning Networks into one integrated portfolio. She develops the CTC curricula and ensures that CTC's training modules meet the needs for capacity development in the field of marine and coastal management. The work covers monitoring and evaluating capacity development activities and regular assessments of potential needs for new course development. Her background includes marine science, social marketing, and environmental social science. She has a PhD on coastal resources management from the Diponegoro University in Indonesia, and her presentation will focus on the role of women in the seaweed culture in Nusa Penida Marine Protected Area in Bali, and the role of women in the blue swimming crab fisheries in Lampung, West Sumatra. Hestie, please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Ibu Riley. Hope this works well with the screen. Good morning, everyone. Happy Coral Triangle. Happy Ocean Day. I would like to present today about the case study of women seaweed farmers in Nusa Penida, as Ibu Riley has already mentioned, and the blue swimming crab women processor in Lampung in Indonesia. The first site that we're going to talk is actually Nusa Penida Islands, which is located in the southeast part of Bali Islands. And this is the MPA that is part of the Coral Triangle MPA system. And the area of the Nusa Penida MPA is 20,057 hectares. And in the Kecamatan Nusa Penida, or the district of sub-district of Nusa Penida, it is 45,000 people living in the islands, in which the composition is actually almost equal between men and women in the island. And actually, the population of the women is actually a little bit higher than the men one. And our intervention in this area is actually focusing on the women groups in Nusa Penida. And just recently in the COVID time, the tourism in Bali is actually collapsed, and people all start returning back to the seaweed farming culture, starting with the 50 households culturing the seaweed. They're actually now reaching the good time for harvesting the seaweed, and the result, actually the price of seaweed is getting better now, reaching $2.5 per kilogram half dry of the seaweed. Then this intervention, we focusing on these women to make sure that they have the quality and capacity to have a good products. The three intervention that we actually conducted is actually having the training session for producing the edibles and packaging, and also we work on the assist, and we also support the groups actually to get the registration for the home industry kind of product and halal certification. The 50 women that actually represents 5 groups in Nusa Penida MPA community groups join this training, and actually now they are in the stage they want to increase their capacity and in producing good straws from the seaweed processing. These groups is actually joining the seaweed farming from the beginning, but then also they produce some of the products to support the post-harvesting activities. The latest meeting that we had with the women is actually a peer kind of training in which some of these 15 focus women group meeting other women doing the works of marketing and processing, but also in how to increase a good product. There's women focusing on producing the seaweed crackers also as a product to another alternative product to sell from this initiative. The second one that we're talking about is actually the blue swimming crab women fishers in Lampung province. This is one of the province in the southern part of Sumatra, the neighbors of Singapore and Malaysia, the closest island to the Singapore and Malaysia. The area that we are working on is actually in Tulang Bawang district on two villages called Kuala Teladas and Sungai Burung. Some of studies mention about that women fishers is not really a women fisher, but some of the women that we're talking about is actually has been engaged with the women in the fisheries activities, starting from collecting the crab, collecting the fish, involving the post-harvest, cleaning and producing alternative economic activities. They involve also in the trading. They're also involved in the processing, like sorting out the crabs and also picking crab from the shells. These are the women that we're talking about. These women, we start this activity intervention focusing on 99 respondents of 5 villages in 2021. We conducted together with our local partners working in Lampung province, and we found out their income from blue swimming crab fisheries activities actually range from $5 per net, like per net is actually like 3 kilometer wide, the long net. But also they also receive fund activities from the post-harvest processing of the waste from the shells, which is not used in the blue swimming crab fishery supply chain. The latest activity that we had is actually we had these women gathered in a learning exchange workshop in which they share their new skill and capacity in supporting the fisheries activities, fisheries management in Lampung. And the intervention for these women is actually how we engage these women is through series of trainings together with the partners of EDF, Starling Resources, and also with the PVI. We engage 44 individuals that gone into a series of training focusing on basic marine ecology and fisheries, financial literacy, business model canvas to help them to identify their niche of product and also how to channel it and marketing the product. And they also learn facilitation techniques and storytelling. And at the end, they also select the issues they want to highlight about their condition in their village, ranging for health and also the status of fisheries through the photography techniques. And this women is actually pioneering the establishment of new learning network, Women Fisher Learning Network in Lampung, that we expect this will be also continue with the wider network in the Coral Triangle. And on the bottom right of this pictures, actually the last activities that we had in Lampung province, which is officiated by the governor of Lampung of the Women Initiative. In this session, we are so proud that 36 women be able to speak out their photos. They speak out about their village conditions and the status of the fisheries, about their progress in terms of voicing out their ideas, their insights about resources management. And this is actually the first time for them to meet the leaders of the province and be able to speak out in front of people. We actually continue at CTC to strengthen the Women Leaders Network in conservation, in which in January 2022, this year, just almost the COVID is gone, hopefully. We actually engaged these women into the network of women conservation. These women got chance to learn about the status of the habitat, how they're actually measuring the condition of the resources, and how they are actually will channel this information and to the community in their village to be able to speak out about the conservation. And hopefully this network then continue with the stronger one. And in CTC, we support this learning network through our portfolio, and we continue our support to make a women leaders to voicing out their ideas, their insights. And through this, some of the intervention of these activities is actually to make sure that women will be able to voice out and to get access to the network, to get access to the committee and the council for making decision in conservation and fisheries. That's from the 2 case study. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Hestie, for your inspiring presentation, highlighting the role of women in the seaweed and in blue swimming crab in 2 areas, including Nusa Penida, MPA in Bali, as well as in Lampung, and emphasizing targeted capacity building activities, as well as the sharing and learning of women leaders, which I think is a great example to how we can strengthen the role of women in this regard. So thanks so much, Hestie, for your presentation. Very much appreciated. And then from Indonesia, we travel to the Solomon Islands and welcome Rinda Melson, President of the Buksa Tufa Women Savings Club. Rinda Melson lives on the Solomon Islands, and she is the president of the Buksa Tufa Women Savings Club. The Savings Club enables women to save income from running micro businesses to secure the necessities for their households. They are able to restrain from using the ocean as their main source of income. Ever since their establishment in 2004, the initiative has flourished. They started off with 5 women, whereas now there are 64 members saving their way to ocean sustainability. We look forward to your presentation, Rinda. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Rinda Melson. I'm the president of the Nusa Tuva Women's Savings Club. Next slide, please. We are located in the western province of the Solomon Islands, near Gizo. See at the map, the red circle at Kolobangara Island is Nusa Tuva, and I'm joining from the WWF office in Gizo today. Next slide. Next. Nusa Tuva Women's Savings Club are using microfinance tools to develop household savings and diversify their family income streams. This is a way to encourage women not to rely on their coastal resources, such as fisheries, for their capital, but to move away from the heavily reliance on fisheries and develop other livelihoods opportunities to help conserve coastal and marine resources while ensuring community well-being. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Nusa Tuva Women's Savings Club is supporting a community-based fisheries management program by largely engaging into agriculture activities like gardening, piggery, poultry, planting varieties of seedlings purposely for domestic income and consumption. However, due to soil infertility, insect beetle extra has disrupted our farming. Also, climate change results in breaking of healthy corals, sea level rise, and increase in crown of thorns in the reef, reduce fish stocks in the fisheries areas. As a result of challenge we are faced in our agriculture and fisheries, Management committee is trying to involve other expertise in agriculture and increase enforcement program in fisheries to improve the stock of products to both components. Our market outlets to sell our products is distant and very expensive to travel to the market. For example, Noro, Ringi, and even Gizo market due to increase in the cost of transport and freights of the goods. As such, women are learning to face difficulties in selling their products. In addition to the recent COVID-19 situation, is a big drawback to a women engaging themselves in selling their products. The national government protocol, no job, no access to market facility is a barrier to women and girls entering into the market space. Also, they are facing limited customers to buy their product as a result of low income earned at the market and low cash flow at the community. As such, we are looking forward for the opportunity from the national government to uplift all restrictions, both domestically and internationally, for the normalcies of the situation and to allow us to access the goods and service. Next slide, please. Women Saving Club are empowered through series of training and have diversified their livelihood option to skill printing, bakery, poultry, piggery, agriculture activity to reduce the pressure on the reef system and sustain a healthy marine environment and its resources. Engaging other stakeholders like Plastic Wise Gizo for training on waste management to our saving club members purposely to make sure that the non-interruptible items will not come into the marine environment, but to be disposed at the right place. In addition to this, the Saving Club local trainers expand the education and awareness program to our school children and other target surrounding communities. Next slide, please. Refer to this chart. In the Solomon Islands, Women's Savings Club are leading to wins for both people and nature. Refer back to my own savings club at Nusa Tuva. Being a member of the saving club, I have gained skills and knowledge through trainings and be able to save money to support my family and my savings club group like other members. As such, I have two exciting developments which initiated by our Women's Savings Club. The first is the establishment of kindergarten school station at the community level, which is in initiative of small children aged from 4 to 6 years old. The Saving Club Executive Committee are also the school committee members to this kindergarten school for good governance and making decisions for the school. This is a way forward for our community that women are engaged and more involved in the social development. The second exciting development that I'm looking forward is to build a women resource center. The center is planned purposely for women activities like organizing and facilitations of trainings and meetings to provide accommodation to guests and conference room to any interested organization to generate income for our savings club. Also to provide a classroom for the kindergarten children and storage of club properties and assets. By engaging in this development, we are building the sustainable blue economy. Thank you from the women of Nusa Tuva.
Thank you so much, Rinda, for sharing this inspiring and innovative project from the Solomon Islands. I think it's a great example how women get engaged in savings and how we reinvested funding in various alternative livelihoods that decrease the pressure on the oceans. Very interesting. Thanks so much for your presentation. And we're moving forward to the next speaker, last speaker of today. And so we go from the Solomon Islands to the Philippines. And the speaker is Suzette Villano. She's the secretary of Sacne Tuna Fishery Association and chairperson of Municipal Fisheries and Aquatic Resources Management Council in Lagonoy Gulf in the Philippines. She's one of the active women leaders in Lagonoy Gulf, and she plays a key role in the decision-making processes in moving fisher folks towards more equitable and sustainable fishing. She also leads the group's savings and loan committee in her community and initiated value-adding activities of the Fishers' Wives and a food shed farming enterprise. We look forward to your presentation, Suzette. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank the organizer of this activity and for considering me as one of the resources speaker. And I'm overwhelmed to be a part of this event and much more excited to share my humble experience as a wife of tuna fishers. Honestly, it never comes in my mind to be involved in a fisheries work. But not because I was then a private school teacher working and dreaming to have only and raise a family in the city. But not until year 2007 when my husband asked me to go with him and decided to stay on his province, to stay for goods. But my husband was then a company driver, turned into a fisherman that makes my family experience financial difficulties. Next slide, please. However, that situation doesn't discourage me. Instead, I supported my husband and using my savings from several years of teaching to buy a new boat, engine, and other tuna fishing paraphernalia for them to reach the area where the tuna is available. Then the tuna and other fishes that he is being caught, I sell it to the market in other nearby municipalities. And I even offer it to the malls, stalls, and the market, and even I offer it to the grocery owners. Next slide, please. Next. Okay. Before, my role is to prepare the food pack from my husband and other fishing paraphernalia. Then, as I said before, that all the fishing and other fisheries product that being caught by my husband, I sell it to the market. Then, as the years and days goes by, I became conscious to the cleanliness of every tuna I am selling. I became conscious of the health of the people and their safety while eating our products. Then the aspect of clean and safety to eat fisheries products became our main goal. We both agree in work for clean and safe fish to eat. And it's just naturally came to us. Then, by this time, I'm not aware that little by little, I developed this great concern to the livelihood that fed my family and fed my community as well. Next, please. Okay. When several interventions arrived like NGO, in our case, WWO Philippines, in partnership to our local government unit of Sangay Camarines Sur, I actively participated because this has something to do with our livelihood in tuna fishing. The eagerness and interest to share the other women in our community became strong. I shared to them how they can help their husband in their livelihood. Then I get involved in several volunteer works with our local government unit. And I join meetings, several forums, and workshops to increase my awareness and the protection and conservation of the tuna fisheries resources. This is hand in hand in enhancing the awareness and capacities of every woman and helping their husband on their occupation. Next, please. Then my appreciation in the fisheries management works gets deeper and deeper. As I become part of the Sangay Tuna Fishers Association, I took over the position of the late and my friend, Girly Menchi Alpahura, the secretary of the Sangay Tuna Fishers Association, who was killed because of her dedication in her work as a volunteer in doing fish catch monitoring. She was tagged as informant to local authorities of the illegal fishing activities happening in the area. That's few of the risks being faced by a volunteer. However, it never stops me to continue and accept the position in her replacement, because I believe that we can change the perception of the people if they were formally informed. Next, please. Next slide, please. Okay. I work with the local government, with our association, to do the information dissemination in every community about the fish catch monitoring and its importance. Next, please. Okay. Since I have a 4-month-old baby girl back then, I even bring my child in several forums because my husband is out of fishing and my other children are in school. So no one could took good care of my youngest. So that's what I did. Then in a fishing community, the norms are the woman should stay in the house and take care of everything. Some difficulties that I encountered is the husband prefer their wives to stay at home and hinders their participation in the community meetings and gatherings. These thought meetings hinders their livelihood because it took their time instead of looking for food for their family. I proved them wrong by bringing the local authorities in our community and other interveners. Constant visit of these people gain their trust and confidence. So next slide, please. Then I shared to them is about the fish catch monitoring. I shared to them the importance of having this data and being forwarded it to the local authorities for the management of fishery resources. At first, it was hard to convince them. They felt it was additional burden to them. Additional burden to do the fish catch monitoring. But I continue my advocacy in the fish catch monitoring despite the negative feedback. And little by little, others do the same. I think it's the consistency and patience that wins their trust. Now they are helping their husband in terms of fish catch monitoring. Next slide, please. I became a woman leader, which sits me in the MFARMC. MFARMC stands for Municipal Fisheries Aquatic Resources Management Council as a chairperson. This council is policy advisory group in our local LGU. on the fisheries matters. To date, I became part of the fishery law enforcement team, which conducted seaborne patrolling, assistance to coastal cleanup activities in mangrove reforestation. Next, please. Next, okay. Likewise, continuous information campaign and coastal communities and even school were participated by Truly and other women colleagues in the fisheries. Next, please. Next. Okay. Greater participation in the forming of group savings and loan committee under Tuna Fishers Association was formed. The members were the wives of tuna fishers in the tuna fishers itself. It was fulfilling when I see them helping their family and finances being put into something worth investing. The next, please. We're lucky because aside from the group savings there is also another livelihood project which enhances the participation of women in the community. We manage a food shed project that augment our income, most especially when it is lean season, meaning when it comes the lean season of tuna. Most importantly, more and more women now become open-minded in the intervention and activities in the management of the tuna resources and fisheries resources as well. As a woman, it was inspiring to continue the work because even in my little way, I became part of a big advocacy, which is to conserve the resources for my children and the next generation. As I can see, greater participation can be achieved through visibility of the local authorities in the area. Because it gains their trust, then incentive system can also be a great part because in my experience, more participation become evident when we receive different intervention. Next, please. Okay. As a wife of a tuna fishers, and as a mother of 8, and as a woman leader, I am thankful that through this volunteer work, I get to know more and more people, reach different places, and inspire others that there's hope in conserving our fisheries resources for the next generation. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you.
For your very interesting presentation and your personal account also of your project and highlighting also the some of the dangerous side of the work that our women face in engaging in these types of activities. And so I think one of the questions is also how can we keep women safe in this regard? And we will get to that question later during the Q&A session. So I would like to thank all the speakers for their excellent presentations. And before we go into the Q&A session, I think Dr. Kushari would like to share 4 slides with us before we go into the Q&A. Dr. Kushari? Are you there? While waiting for Dr. Kushari, maybe we can go to the first question from John Parks.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you all hear me?
Yes. Go ahead, Dr. Kushari.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. Really, your voice is not very clear actually.
Okay.
Right.
Sorry.
Right. Thank you very much. Thank you for all the presentation. It was very great, especially by Suzette. It was very resourceful to me. So, to me, women's role must not be only at the ground, root, or field level, but also it must go up to the decision-making level. So how do we do this? This is part of RS is trying to push forward for women's opinion to be heard at a higher level. So I'm interested to show the slides now to the question, for example, by John Park, for example. I study his questions today. So to me now is city ICFF under women. This is the question by John Park. The last line there with this in mind: how can regional organizations like city ICFF work to ensure gender equity and social inclusion within the blue economy for the Coral Triangle region? So thank you very much, John Park, to your questions. I'm going to show you in the next slide here. CTICFF, the Women Leaders Forum here, partners and also function as peer learning network for women are playing key leadership roles now in the region. And the point number 2 there here, we have initiated the gender equality and social inclusion policy, which have been approved in the senior officer meeting of the Coral Triangle in 2021. Next slide. So what is the practice now that we go in the regional level of the CTICFF? So in the country representative focal points, as you can see now, female 37% and male 63%. This is the level of the country representative focal points. And the technical working group now also, we encourage a female to be involved thoroughly here. So in this technical working group now, the female amount is 63% and male 37%. Now, looking at the regional secretariat itself, there is me and my group here. We now push forward and reminds also the decision making at higher level, so that male and female must be more or less equal in decision making at the regional level here. And the country representative, as you can see now, the committee of, on the right side there, CTICFF, Committee of Senior Officers, Country Representative, also now, this is a mix already, male and female. Before this, when I took over in 2019 to last month, it's only male 100%. So now it's already female, already entering into the CSO level. Next. Now, in the women decision making here, if you can see the National Coordinating Committee of each country of the member countries, you see that Indonesia, well balanced, female and male in the decision making level. Malaysia, we have male to be more than the female. Papua New Guinea, the female more than the male. And then the Philippines, male and the female, as you can see on the chart there, pie chart there, Solomon Island and Timor-Leste. So all the countries now are really concerned about decision-making level. Next. Now, what do we do now? We in fact go further now to the Regional Plan of Action 2.0. So we, in the 2.0 RPOA Regional Plan of Action for the whole region of Coastal Coral Triangle now, by 2030, gender equality and social inclusion will be mainstream. So by 2020, the CTICFF reports a positive change in productivity, skills, income, gender, social inclusions, all towards the region, including the priority seascapes and MPA networks. So the last point I will to bring to you, the implementation of gender equality and social inclusions. By 2030, the gender equality and social inclusion policy is thoroughly socialized, mainstream, and implemented by NCC and development partners. So development partners now, I would like to thank you to thank you for the effort as overall for a very active participation in many discussions conducted involving CTICFF as well as the Coral Triangle Center in Bali. So we all work together very well now to try to implement this. There's a good news now. The Regional Plan of Action has been finalized last week, so we are now will go further up to inform the others when it is actually endorsed at the senior level. I thank you very much, really.
Thank you, Dr. Shari, for your excellent additional information and interesting statistics about representation of male and women in the NCCs and other decision-making processes. And very good news also about the regional plan action forward to the finalization. And thank you also for actually already responding to John Park's first question. And I guess from the strategic partners perspective, John, I can also mention that the partners are working on 3 strategic papers related to or initiatives on policy, regional policy, sustainable financing and capacity building. And that will be 3 major opportunities for us to engage, women and ensure social inclusion in the Coral Triangle Initiative, so we can target innovative financing to include women and other groups in the sustainable initiatives, as well as build targeted capacity building programs for women, as we saw in all 3 presentations, that training capacity building is an integral part of engaging women in sustainable activities. So I think there's a lot of efforts, concerted efforts going on in this as well. In response to Dr. Ali's question, perhaps I can ask Susan Rojas to respond to this question in terms of how, I don't know whether we have the information, how much investment goes into these types of programs.
I really sorry, your sound is not very good. I couldn't hear.
Okay. But can you hear me?
Right.
Really, yeah, really, it's a breaking up. Your voice is breaking up, not smoothly. Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. But Susan, can you respond to Dr. Ali's question?
Right. Was it on the chat? Sorry.
Yes, that's right.
Was this about what development partners can do?
No, it's after that. It's about how much investment goes to those projects.
Oh,
So how much of the investment mentioned directly goes to women in small-scale operations, aside from strengthening women as nurturers and carers, other initiatives to provide more opportunities for women who desire to go beyond their traditional reproductive roles. It was in the context of your global or regional statistics. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, really. Thank you for the question. I have to say, I do not know what % of investments go to women's initiatives. I think that will require a little bit of research. However, I do know that investments in small scale, micro, small, and medium enterprises, community enterprises, there is a huge gap in investing in this sector, right? As I said, because it is very high, it's perceived to be very high risk. So that I think is something we need to look at going forward. How do we attract more investments? And if it's small scale, how can women be more involved, as the presenters who gave such inspiring case studies of how women are involved and how they are so good at managing a lot of these very critical initiatives like credit clubs. And I mean, that would definitely be a way of de-risking investments in communities. So yeah, I don't know in aggregate how much % goes to it. I do know there is a gap, and we should and this should be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Very much appreciated. And the other question actually was from Susan to Suzette in terms of also, how could we help make, the role of women actually in IUU fishing, reporting, how can we help make it more safe? As it's terrible that one of your, colleagues was killed in the line of duty. Do you have any recommendations in this regard?
With regards to the question. Okay, good morning again. With regards to your question, well, actually, I'm not anymore threatened by this, no, because of the support of our local government unit and other agencies. So, and actually, at present, there are no more illegal activities. In fact, our local government was awarded as Malinis at Masaganang Karagatan, which means clean and abundant ocean, because our fisher folks abide fishery laws. So I'm not afraid anymore, and there's no threat anymore.
That's good to hear. Thank you, Susan. Thank you for sharing. And I just like to highlight a few other comments here in the chat box as well, in terms of you know, the observation that especially, for example, saving banks could become really a tool for community self-sufficiency, self-reliance, particularly also during hazardous times like during the pandemic and others. Examples from the Solomon Islands is great, and it's something we could perhaps scale up throughout the Coral Triangle beyond the Solomon Islands. And also we could share our training and capacity building programs that we do in Indonesia, Philippines, and Solomon Islands as well. There's so much already going on that the sharing and learning across the region will also be extremely helpful. And figuring out our common challenges, like we work in remote islands, difficulty access to markets, to sell the products. And it's really, I think, very useful if we can help facilitate the sharing and learning. And I believe as a co-chair, the Women Leaders Forum, the forum could help with this type of sharing and learning. We will look into how we can help scale up the lessons learned and best practices of women engagement in sustainable blue economy projects like we have heard today. And I think it's very inspiring to see how much is going on in this regard. And just want to highlight again the key points that Susan made, Susan Rojas, in her presentation earlier this morning, that the sustainable blue economy requires a systematic approach, an ecosystem-based management approach. It requires an inclusive approach. It requires innovative financial models, as well as diversity in sustainable financing. And I think today our presentations did allude to those particular principles of a sustainable blue economy, in which the role of women are pivotal, and especially in our fisheries sector, and really at the forefront of making those innovations happen. And I think the examples from the seaweed women groups in Nusa Penida, the blue swimming prep in Lampung, as well as our example from the Philippines and in the Solomon Islands on saving banks, and how these savings can actually help diversify the alternative income for local communities, becoming less dependent on specific ocean activities and become more sustainable, more resilient, I think are an inspiration to us all. So I really hope that this session, this webinar was interesting to all of you. I think we should conclude this webinar, and again, celebrating the Coral Triangle Day. I'd like to thank all the speakers for their very inspiring and very uplifting informations and presentations, and would like to thank Dr. Kushari from the Secretariat, Susan, Hestie, Rinda, who already left, unfortunately, and Suzette for your excellent presentations, And again, to all the participants who joined this session today, we really appreciate it. And for sure, we'll share the lessons learned from this webinar today. If you like, we can make a group photo, perhaps, just for our records. That would be great. If you can turn on your videos. We are 69 of us, but should be possible. Thank you. Okay. Nico, can you make it?
Yes, Ibu, we will take 3 times Ibu for photo because we have a lot of participants.
Yeah. Okay.
So, okay, everyone, I will count 3 seconds. Wait. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, another 2 session. Please stand by. 1, 2, 3.
Great.
Once again, Ibu. Thank you.
Okay.
1, 2, 3. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Ibu. Yeah.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good day. And again, happy Coral Triangle Day and happy Ocean Week. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you. Thank you.